Hi, I'm Alfonso Davies, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers,
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. I'm Michael McCall,
I'm Steve Pander.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhammer.
and tonight was the night that we've been waiting for a long time.
That's right, folks. Tonight, Steve and I are going to break down Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings as the second film in Marvel Phase 4. Michael, are you ready?
I haven't seen it, so you can't break it down, so
Oh.
sadly, we're not going to get into that. But we are going to marvel at a few other things in this episode. We're going to sit down for a chat with Whitecaps CEO and sporting director Axel Schuster. And then we'll unpack a little bit of what he has to say. A lot to talk about, obviously, after a busy week in Whitecapsland. We're going to look at the firing of Mark DeSantis, the search for a new coach, and a lot of other aspects of it all as well. And then in the second part, we're going to turn our attentions to the international stage, the Canadian national team. They've kicked off the Octagon. Didn't quite go how we were really hoping for it to go, but we'll delve all into that in the second part of the show as well. So let's start things off with our chat with Axel Schuster. As I mentioned, I didn't get a chance to jump on the conference call with him after Mark's dismissal last week, so I had a lot of questions I was looking to ask him. So we had half an hour with him today. We'll bring you that to kick off the show, and then we'll unpack a little bit of what he said. So go make yourself a hot beverage, grab your favourite biscuit of choice, and enjoy our chat with Axel S. So thank you so much for joining us today, Axel. I know it's been a very trying and testing kind of week or so in the build-up to our chat today. I mean, we last spoke at Starlight Stadium on Wednesday after training. It was you, me, Mark, Zach. I mean, at that point, did you have any thought in your mind that Mark was going to be let go?
Yeah, it would be, I think, not right to say that it was not already in my mind that things like that can happen. Not saying that I was expecting that it would happen on Friday. And I said that last week. The decision process took me a whole night, if that is now really the right moment. But there have been some thoughts to that before, that I would be maybe in this situation, or I will end up in this situation. And there have been a lot of reasons that I have brought up already last week, why I thought that can happen. We were looking at the development, and we were looking how the process of development was, especially after we had all pieces together. And I think the game on Thursday was such a big setback in regards of everything we expect our team to be, and how our team looks, and what our team, what kind of approach our team should have, that after a long night, I thought it's the right moment to do it now. Before, I'm frustrated about myself that I missed the momentum and have not done it at the moment like this one and we have passed on more time, and we have given up a chance to get more points than in the end. But as always, you never know before. You have to take a decision at the moment where you as a decider, it's challenging you because it can go in both directions, and you have to do what you're convinced of. And I was completely convinced of, and I would never have him. And so there was never an I never would thought that the game on Sunday looks then like it looked. And obviously, going now from this game, I think we are back on the road. That's the important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I said this a few weeks ago. At the end of that RSL game, the 4-0 defeat, like the bad stretch of games, I could have seen him being let go then. I genuinely thought that might have been the time to do it. The timing, though, after 8 league games undefeated, it looks a little strange. But I mean, obviously you've got your reasons. We won't rehash those because you covered over that. Mark's was on CTV, and he kind of said that he felt the trust had gone from both you to him and him to you, or you as the club, not you personally. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I can only speak for myself and the club, and obviously if you terminate the contract with the coach, or you do a change on the coaching position, then obviously what Mark says is right, because then definitely the trust is gone. Otherwise, he would not do it. And so I would say it was the trust in the process, that the development isn't going into the right direction. It is really not the trust in him as a person, as a coach. Yes, there would have been other moments where we could have done that, and you brought it up after the RSL game, but I'm very thankful, and I want to use this interview as well to say thank you to Mark. He has led us through very difficult times, and we had very, very difficult 16 months where we have been gone on the road. We have been disconnected from our families altogether. We all have been together in that, and he was leading a group at a time where it was not easy to lead a group, because you had to respect and understand that everyone was going through tough moments throughout all the 60 months, and he kept this group very well together. So I have not seen one moment where you had the feeling that the group has given up, or that we have shown the wrong mentality or the wrong work ethic in our games. I think a lot of credit to him. The problem was that now, as we are back and we had all pieces together, we expected our team to play with a different approach, with a special approach, with the approach that we are looking for, and that the team makes a step forward on the performance side, not only on the result side. And I think it's my job to evaluate that and to take decisions at the right time, and not at the moment where everyone knows that it now has to happen, because then it's too late. So if I always say, nobody else has the full insight, because nobody else is here every day. Nobody else sees every single person every day, has the chance to speak with every player, staff member, every person around, and have this connection with the coaching staff as well. So if I don't feel and see it before everyone else, then I would not do a good job. And for that reason, maybe it was surprising for some people, but I still think it was exactly at the right moment.
Last thing on this, because I want to look more towards the future, because the past is past. Nothing can change that. That's just how I look at things in life. But I think a lot of us maybe thought Mark wasn't going to be back next year anyway, whether because you didn't want him back as a club, or whether he wanted a new challenge. Would it have been more difficult to get rid of him, say, at the end of the season if the club had made the playoffs? And did that timing, or did any financial aspect or money lost from not advancing in the Canadian Championship, did any of that play factors into it?
You're speaking with one guy that was a decision maker at the club that just got promoted from second Bundesliga to first Bundesliga and changed the coach 6 days before the first Bundesliga game. I would say with that, I would not have any problems to take a decision at any time when I think it's the right thing. I told you, there was also pressure on me after that decision, and it was the moment where I had to take a decision that maybe people don't understand. And obviously it could go the other way, and we lose the first game since a long time in the league, and people would say, yeah, but why has he done that now? So I have to take the decisions at the moment where I think they're right, and that's the basis of my decision. And if that would have been after the season, there's a nice saying, in the success you often make the biggest mistakes. So I always try to not make decisions in an emotional moment, and also that was the reason. It was easy after the game in an emotion to say it's over and out, but that was the reason why I really wanted to explain how long it took me and how much people I have involved to not take the wrong decision in emotions after that game, and based on the facts and the imagination that I had already since a few weeks.
Yeah, I think anyone that saw yourself and Jeff Mallett after that game knew, like, the defeat hurt, and it wasn't a great defeat. Before we move on, just to kind of lighten the mood, I do want to talk to you about ordering burgers at 1 a.m. That is not good for your metabolism. I'm a late snacker. It's not a good thing.
I think that was the smallest problem in that night.
Right, looking ahead then. Obviously, whenever there's a vacancy at a club like the Whitecaps, and I think with what the Whitecaps have done and what you're building and the potential at the club just now, it is quite a prized position. Have you been inundated with people getting in touch, kind of feeling you out, expressing their interest already?
Yeah, that's the weird part of our business, and the good part of our business in another way. I was even making a bet how long it takes, and it took 2 minutes after the announcement that the first message came in. So if one door closes, another door opens up, and a lot of people want to step through this door. I can say we were just making we were just collecting all the names and all the names that have been brought up. So names that we have approached, names that have been brought up by agents. We are now crossing the 180 number of names. So we are close to the 200. I think we will cross that bar later this week. But and thank you to the team with the result and the way the team played. That bought us some time to really think about the profile, to think what is the search mask, what are the skills our coach has to have first. I asked more or less everyone in this organization that is connected with the team the question to send me his 3 points, or the 3 things a head coach has to have first for him in our club. And we have also approached a few names, and there are a few also thinking about the whole situation. So we are in the process, and we believe in this process. We believe that Wenny and his crew is doing the best job they can do to get another result at the weekend. We will keep holding the team accountable for giving another performance like the last one, to put in the right effort again, to have the same discipline defensively and structurally and to work again as a team that closely together to make it very hard to score against us, and then with the quality up top to score. And who knows how things go on. I can really not give any more detail than about the whole process, because this business is special, and we have seen so many things happening in other scenarios comparable to that I cannot say anything more than that. We have a strong process, that we again want to sign the right profile, a profile that fits to us, and not somebody who comes in and explains us how MLS works or how he works and who wants to change everything, because we have a strong belief that we're building here something and that we're building it into the right direction. So saying that, it will maybe take us some time, and maybe we find the ideal candidate at some point when he will be here, and maybe when he continues to win every single game, and we continue to do the process, and yeah, who knows? I'm not saying anything about it, but it would not be the first time Hansi Flick is today played his first game as national team coach, and who would thought that he can win the not only the triple, he won I think 5 or 6 cups in 1 year, and he was the acting head coach for only few games at the beginning, and end up being the most successful coach in the history of Bayern Munich in 1 year.
Well, yeah, I mean, you just have to look at Brian Schmitzer in Seattle as well. When he took over, not many people there, they thought it was a strange appointment. And then you see the success that he's done. And you talked in the press conference last week, you were asked about MLS experience, and you said as long as it's part of the coaching team, that's important. If you look, though, like MLS, it's such a weird league. If you look at a lot of the teams that's won it in the last few years, it's been with American coaches. It's been with guys that do know the league. I mean, how much stock do you put in that? Or do you feel coaching is coaching around the world, and if you're the guy that can get the best out of the players, that's the most important thing?
Yeah, first of all, coaching is coaching, because I would even question, was there a chance to get high quality coaches from other countries in? Because I think the league has now a history of development, and it becomes more attractive and better every single year. So I think now the league is also in the focus of a few other players, as we see. So more high quality players are coming to the league, and the same probably will happen on the coaching side. I think Tata Martinez is a very good example that it can also work the other way around, so that it has not to be a domestic coach. But what I would say, and where I totally agree, that this league, and whoever signs into this league and wants to be a successful coach, has to understand this league very well, has to understand the player profile, the player type that you have here very well, and has to understand the limitations with that you have to work, also with the union rights, with the long travels you have, with the mix of players you have, because you still will have also in future a strong domestic player pool that has a different basis of development and education than maybe players coming in from other markets. So you have to, it's necessary that you have a proven record that you have worked with a similar type of player pool somewhere else. And I think the thing where coaches have struggled in this league is if they come back and try to continue what they did in a very, very good league, or in a league that is very technical, for example, and they just try to use their their way of doing things and to copy paste it here to the league, because that doesn't work. So I would not limit it to only domestic coaches, but I would limit it to a profile that you find in all domestic coaches, but it doesn't only exist domestically.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. And I think with the Whitecaps, and obviously all the other hirings have happened but before your time here, but the last couple of hirings, in fact, all the hirings in the MLS era, they've all been lower tier managers that are getting tested at the higher tier for the first time. Maybe you can say Tater Totterson because he had international experience with Estonia. That's different. But all the other managers, Martin Rennie, he'd won things lower level. Kyle Robinson obviously hadn't, and he was just promoted. And then Mark had obviously won things before as well. Now, a lot of the fan base, they don't want that kind of appointment again. They want someone that's done it at a higher level. I don't think that is as important because, and I'm just throwing this name out there, not for you to comment on, but someone like Bobby Smirniotis at Forge FC. So he's won back-to-back championships. He's done it in CONCACAF. He's got a history of bringing forward through young guys with Sigma. I still think there is scope to look at a guy that's done it at the lower level and can be successful in MLS. But are you getting the sense as well that the feeling around the club or the feeling around the fan base is it has to be somebody that's done it at a higher level?
Yeah, and then we can start to discuss what is a higher level than MLS, because in my opinion, the higher level than MLS is only 5 leagues, and not even every club in those 5 leagues. Because if you go through the Spanish league or the Italian league, and you look at the smallest clubs in those leagues, I would say that almost every club in MLS is bigger and has a better setup, a better environment, a better setup also in their academies. And I only want to copy what, for example, Ryan Gold said. He has never had the chance to be in such a facility like ours. So he has played in some big clubs. So is that now a higher level? The coaches that have been in those clubs where he was before. So I as somebody who totally believe in the development of MLS would say no. So yes, and then to get a coach from a higher level is almost impossible. So because then we speak about a very limited group. And again, I don't want to limit to that. What I want to say is definitely for us, and that is maybe different to the coaches we had before. The guy who's coming in, he has to have a proven record of making a team immediately better without big investments, because we don't want to change things. We will not change the team. We will not sign 5 new players next year because the coach has a different style, a different approach. And he has to have a proven record of developing players to a higher level and to increase the quality of the players. That's something that is definitely a search criteria, and it excludes a lot of coaches that are very good assistants, for example, somewhere. And I really don't doubt that they maybe are a very good coach, but it's not our search mass for this time. So said that, again, I have no problem to sign somebody who was a coach at a lower level than MLS, because there are a lot of lower levels, very, very challenging lower levels than MLS. Because my history, as everyone knows, was that I was a decider at a club that gave Jürgen Klopp the first time in his life the chance to become a head coach. Thomas Tuchel, the first time in his life the chance to become a head coach in a professional game, because he was a very, very successful coach in the youth, and he won the German championship as a youth coach. I was a decider in a club where Domenico Tedesco, who won German championships in the youth, became the first time, after only being 6 months a coach in the second German league, become the first time a first league coach and finished second in the league. and now after that, in his next job, finished second in Russia. So I say it's more about this quality of the coach, and there are very, very high quality, high skilled coaches in leagues that we would define as minor leagues. But again, we don't limit our search to any thought of that. At the end, the coach can come from everywhere as long as we think that he has the right skills.
The club in the past was always criticised for not spending on players, and I think they've kind of shed that image a little bit with some of the signings in the last couple of seasons. What they've never done, though, is kind of like burst the bank to get a manager in. Are you prepared, if you see the right man and it's going to cost a bit of money to get him here, you would make that move?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but again, I was part of a process to come here, and I think money and the city should never be the reason why somebody signs somewhere. And I don't want somebody that signs because, hey, I get good dollars in Vancouver and the city is amazing, and I can spend them very well in a lot of nice restaurants and sitting at the seaside. So, but if the guy that has all the skills and the guy that has everything that it needs to be our guy in our search has a pedigree and has an experience and has an expectation that is justified, then we are up to satisfy to make the bid that is necessary. But I think that this league is really moving to the right direction to try not to convince people with money anymore, because this league as a very minor and young league had to do that at some point. But if somebody calls me and said, hey, this coach would not be up with all his experience, but you have to understand he has an offer from China and he can get 5 million. I say, good luck in China. We are not China, and we should not play that game. But I'm pretty convinced that we have a budget that is big enough to convince the right one.
And talking of like bringing folk in and spending money, there is still an open designated player spot. There's a chance to add a free agent before the roster freeze. Is that something that's likely, or is that probably going to have to wait to the next window now in January?
Possible, but it's not that we're desperate to do that now. We are desperate to do it in winter. We all know about the open spot, but we are more looking at the chance if somebody still remains to be a free agent now after all windows closed and somebody has pokered in the wrong way, and he is a great opportunity or possibility for us now, and we can be a good possibility for him. But it's not that we are everywhere in the market to fill another role and the spot. We think that we have a group together that is good enough to go to the playoffs, and it doesn't need the push. And then for next year, if we want to continue to build in the next step, we want to add the right guy again. And I hope that with the signing of Ryan Gold and the impact he has here, people have a little bit more trust in our process, that all our process also takes sometimes a little bit more time, or that our process, that we are not up to sign, as I always said, the first one, we want to sign the right one, and that we will take all time to find the right one, because if the right one has such an impact like then Ryan Gold, and if the next right one also has such an impact, I think we are in a very good way.
Yeah, just look in Scotland. That's clearly the answer for you.
Scotland is the answer for all problems.
It definitely is. That's why I left it. Just the very last thing, just before you go. Obviously, the next coach, it's a big appointment. It's a huge thing for the club. It has to be right to take the club to the next level, to win the fans back, to take the next step. Do you feel under pressure? Do you feel your job is on the line if this doesn't work out?
No, I'm not thinking that way, because otherwise I would maybe start to think about security solutions or things like that, only to protect myself. So I don't feel on the line. I have a strong belief that we are here in a process that's going into the right direction. If I see our team playing on Sunday, I see a team that is playing in the way we were always speaking about how our team should look like and how we want to win games in this league. It's another very, very important missing piece now, the head coach. And I know that the head coach can have a huge impact to make a next step and maybe even just jump and do 2 steps if he's the right one. For that reason, I don't feel pressured. A lot of guys reach out. We sent you the profile 3 days ago. Are you up now to meet him? And I said, no, we are not even ready to think to make a shortlist yet. And again, we all know what we have with Rennie. We have taken this decision a while ago to make it into the head of methodology. He is our coach developer. And it's not like that I have to coach the team, because that definitely would be a bad idea. So let us focus on the next game. That's the first thing we do every week. That's also the first thing I do every week now, to support Venny and the staff and everyone to have the best possible support to get a result in the next game. And then we have a good group here together that is working on the process. And if the right one is there, we will definitely sign him. And as long as he is not here, we continue to work with this group.
Thank you as always for your time, Axel. I know you've got to go now. Always fun chatting. Take care, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me, and have a great day. Axel Schuster there, Whitecaps CEO and General Manager. So we're going to unpack a few of the things that he said there, and I think there was a lot of honesty there. I mean, we'll kick things off. His admission. He had thought about getting rid of MDS earlier in the year. That RSL loss before the break seemed like the time where it was a chance for him to do that. And he said, Zach, he's frustrated with himself for not doing it at that point, and the points that may have been lost by delaying. So after that defeat against Pacific, he thought that's the catalyst. It's now or not now or never, but it's like now's the time to do it. And despite them being on that 8-game run, he just felt there was not that advancement, there was not that development, so this was the time. Are you surprised that he has said that they had considered it before, or is that kind of a foregone conclusion, really?
Well, I think, yes, it is a foregone conclusion. I also think that, like you guys corrected me on, I believe, our last episode, I think he can say whatever he wants now, because if they're not successful to making the playoffs, you're right, it's not going to hang on him. It's going to hang on, they're going to leave it hanging on MDS, right? Like, so I think he can kind of speak freely as he did with you, because there's not a lot of concern for him about 2021, I don't think.
No. I mean, Steve, we thought that it was probably the time for him to go in the summer. And I don't know how many points you can say that they dropped in that run of games, but I mean, there's 5 draws in there. Do you really think having Vanni Tartini kicking things off after that RSL game would have got a lot more points on the board?
No, I don't. Like, there were games that they definitely could have, like, on the paper, they should have won. Like the Houston game, they drew that 0-0. That was potentially something they could have won. But other than that, but then you got games in there, like the game against the Galaxy. That was not expected. They won that game 2-1. They beat LAFC 2-1. So they actually, if you overall, like the whole analytics expected points, I believe they probably got more points than they should have compared to the teams they were playing. Yes, the 4-0 loss, that was devastating. And the run before that, they had a long run without a win.
Yeah.
So that makes sense that if they wanted to do it, but looking back on it, making the reasoning that, if they had done it, pulled the trigger sooner, that they might have gained points, I don't know. I don't think that's the case.
It's clear, though, that Axel has felt for a while that Mark was not the guy to lead this team forward. And I mean, he mentioned it there again, development of players, development of the team. And I mean, it sounds pretty clear that he just felt that MDS was not able to get the best out of this group of players. And when you see how they played on Sunday and you see other little flashes here and there, it's kind of hard to argue with that, really, Zach, because, I mean, this is a good group of players. And I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe he just didn't get the best out of them.
Yeah, and that's the ongoing debate that really won't be answered until they make the playoffs or not. I think what Mark said before, and I think if you ask Mark now, is he feels they were in a very good place to make the playoffs, and they should make the playoffs based on who they have now and what looks to be a mostly complete squad and the trajectory they're on.
Yeah, and I mean, Axel, I brought up Mark's comment that he gave to CTV about the trust was gone, and Axel says, I can't speak for anyone else, just myself. And yeah, Mark's right. When a manager has been sacked, it's because the trust is gone. So, I mean, very, very open with what he said there. Now, I want to give a little bit of feedback from the last show. Now, the last show that we had, but we got some really good feedback, some mixed feedback, and I just want to go over a couple of the things here. Now, the first one I want to go over, I totally agree with this. BL Herzlite on Twitter said, it's unfortunate you didn't have someone on the show who was pro the MDS firing. A lot of people on social media were wanting him gone after the Pacific game, and I don't think we were a minority. It was time for the Whitecaps to move on. And yeah, I think that's very fair. All four of us, I genuinely thought Naveed would have been the guy that was all for the firing. So that's why I didn't ask you guys. I just wrongly.
I totally agree with you. I expected coming into that even because Naveed has been open with his analysis of how he reviews the stats on Mark's record in comparison, especially to Carl Robinson. And so, I thought for sure he was going to say, kind of come from that perspective and if you will, balance out our discussion a little bit more. I was surprised like you were.
Well, the thing is like I had no problem like with the firing. That wasn't he didn't feel like I had a huge problem. There was some reasoning behind it that I had an issue with, and also I didn't think Mark DeSantos was coming back next year either.
Yeah.
So for me, the firing, I didn't feel like it was going to make a difference positively or negatively towards the team. I thought the team was set. Like I thought the team was actually on an upswing because of the addition of Ryan Gold and everything.
Yeah, and again, that comes back to one of the things we talked about last week in terms of I really think one of the clinching things, aside from losing the Voyageurs Cup, was the fact that they, like Steve said, they didn't want to bring him back, and if he had qualified to the playoffs, it would have been harder for them from a public perception it could have been harder for them from a public perception wise to bring him back. Maybe not from the dialed in people, but from like just the general sports fan. They'd be like, they made the playoffs. Why are they firing the coach?
No, he would have had to make the conference finals in order for him.
That's maybe fair.
I don't see that. I didn't see that happening. Like they're just making the playoffs would have been a big deal.
I mean, Axel, I didn't know this when he revealed it in the chat, and maybe it was something that you knew, Zach, but it's like he was with a team that got promoted. I'm assuming it was Mainz, and then they sacked their manager before the new season started, the manager that had got them promoted.
Oh, I'd have to look at that. But yeah, that sounds like Mainz.
Interestingly, at East Fife, we had a guy that won our first championship for 60 years, didn't start the next season very well, and the fans were hounding him out the door after just a few games in. That's just kind of what football fans are like.
And but I understand what the listener's saying, but you can't force and you can't be searching around for somebody that's pro. If it happens to be that all of us agree, then all of us agree. Yeah, it doesn't make for scintillating podcasting. But you can't fake it.
And again, I think your perspective is really important, Michael. I think really expected Naveed to kind of
be that guy
on that issue.
I want to kind of balance it though by reading some tweets that we did have about it. So I mean, Greg Petrie at Our World said, "I don't blame MDS for his first year. That's all in the front office. Last year was COVID. Or I don't blame him for struggling to score before Gold, but they've been poor defensively the whole year, and I think it is more on him. The Canadian Championship game was a justifiable final straw for his dismissal, and I like a good conspiracy theory, but he was fired because the finance guys were counting on going further in that competition doesn't hold, since they had no guarantee of any home games for it this year. But I think it's the long-term thing in that regard is more of what we were meaning, because if you make Champions League, you get all the stuff that goes with that.
It is absolutely a part of their budgeting structure to make it to a certain point in the Voyageurs Cup. It's absolutely they I don't know how much the dollar amounts are with each round, but they are, when they found out where they were not expecting to go out in that round. They were expecting to advance 1 or 2 or 3 rounds for sure.
And 100% agree with the defensive liability. That shouldn't have been, like, that's been going on for too long for the Whitecaps, no matter, it seems like, who the coach is.
Yeah.
It's been a breakdown for a long time.
And without rehashing what we spoke about at the weekend, it's like when you see Florian Ljungberth come in and you're like, why was this guy signed and sitting on the bench for all these games? When you see the difference that he made in the middle of that defense.
My feeling is that again, Mark DeSantos had his people that he liked, but the people upstairs didn't want those guys in the starting lineup, like Jake, like Andy Rose, and they wanted other people, and that didn't happen. Yeah,
probably for very good reason though. Hookie says, yes, the club were right to get rid of him. Sad because he seems like a good guy and he went through a lot. He helped move the club forward, as in identity, pushing reorganisation, teamwork, but ultimately he couldn't turn it to wins, period. No owner blame BS. Have to be accountable. If you say that MDS knew what he was getting into, then you have to take out the ownership, management and financial bias BS. So did MDS deliver? No. And following up on that, this one's more aimed at you, Zach. This was an email I got from Brinsley, who said, again, the narrative that he was shortchanged spending and resource that Zach puts forward is so ridiculous, and his mind-numbing bias is beyond hard to take. Mark had his hands on the wheel and he failed. He obviously wasn't good enough for the job. He should have been fired a year ago. With the players he had, even half-decent coach at this level would have done way better. Great decision to axe him now, no pun intended. It is pro sports, not amateur hour.
Yeah, I think he's listening to my old comments in the past. I don't think I said that he like MDS was given a lot of stuff, a lot of, like, especially transfer fees. What I was saying is the wages of the levels of players he was given was disappointing. That's all. Like, yeah, I know a lot of people don't like him. They think he should be gone. That's good. He's gone. They can move on.
Yeah, as we will as well. There was a couple of other people like Soccer Culture Canada and Taylor Stephen as well. They were surprised that he went now and the timing of it. But we will move on because that's what we need to do. And we've got to look at the new boss or the new potential boss. Now, from the sounds of what Axel said there, it's not going to be a surprise if Vanni Sartini sees the season out because they're not going to be in a rush. Now, Axel said he had a little bet as to how long it would take before the first note of interest came through an email or text to him after Mark's sacking was announced. 2 minutes it took for someone to say that they were interested in the job, which is an interesting development. They've had over 180 notes of interest and names that's been put forward as potential and agents getting in touch and stuff like that. I genuinely feel this is quite a prime job because you've got an exciting DP now. You've got other exciting players there. You've got a fan base that can be really good. I think it really is a position that a lot of managers would want.
The problem is how good a quality are the people interested? We just don't know.
That is the thing.
Because if it was somebody of high quality, don't you think they would have hired him right away? Why are they waiting to hire that person?
But you don't want to rush into just having the first person. You want to get the right person.
But if that,
I'm sounding like Axel now.
What I'm saying is that if there's 80 people, you said, I can't
Yeah,
remember.
he thinks it'll be over 200 by the end of the week.
But if there's 180 people, one of those has to be the right guy. If
you would hope.
I'm saying if they're of quality.
Yes.
So the 180 people, I would wait to see how good a quality the options are there.
Well, I get a lot of DMs from players in Africa wanting me to arrange trials with the Whitecaps, which I think they misunderstand.
Yeah.
I was going to say the exact same thing, Michael. I can tell you the number of people who message either myself or some of the supporters I know about trying to get them, a deal with the Whitecaps. You'd be surprised, or former players reaching out and asking about prospects. Yeah, the 180 is it's nothing. It's again, that's like PR to make it sound like lots of people are interested and they're excited, which is good. And you're right, there probably are some good prospects in that significant amount of a number. But it doesn't matter until they actually, like, who they actually bring in, right? Like, that's all that matters.
Well, yeah.
I had a guy about 7-8 years ago asking me to help for tryout, and he was working in a warehouse. Yeah, and he was like 22 years old or 21 years old. He wasn't even on a team at that point.
Jamie Vardy was working in a factory making prosthetic limbs. Now look at him. Anyway, maybe Jamie Vardy will apply. We'll get a player manager. As for the new boss, now Axel, he's not ruling out a domestic coach. He's not saying it's going to be a foreign coach. It all boils down to experience and knowledge of having a similar player pool. And what he means by that is MLS, there's a lot of domestic players, which Axel said is at a different level, different experience, different education, probably different skill, if we're being honest, than what maybe some of the European coaches are used to coming through the ranks there. So he needs somebody that's used to working with a similar domestic player pool, but you also want somebody that understands all the logistics of MLS, the fact that there is the travel, that there's all these different altitudes and heat and everything like that, all the player mechanisms, the fact that you can't just go out and spend 20 million, 30 million on a player to make your team better, because that's not how things work with the salary cap. So he's needing somebody that maybe not necessarily has the experience, but understands that this is what they're coming to. And a very telling thing, Zach, is he said, we're not going to be, they have to be able to work with the budget that they've got. And he said, we're not going to be going and splashing and making 5 big new signings. This is our player pool. We'll strengthen it a little, but we're not basically blowing this team up. This is what we're working with, and we're building on it going forward. Yeah,
that's good. And I mean, that's really important for them and their discussions with whoever's going to be their new coach, that they are transparent with them, because the person coming in needs to know what the possibilities are in terms of that, right? Because every coach wants to bring in some players, right? Or wants to strengthen their team once they've evaluated it themselves in person. So they need to be really aware of what the possibilities or limitations are.
Which will put some folk off, Steve, as well, because they're thinking, I maybe don't have the control that I would want coming into this. But I do like that. The last thing we need is something getting blown up again. But it does sound like this is actually going to possibly be the best position the club are in for hiring a coach in all these years, because they know exactly what they want.
Yeah, they have talent and everything like that. For me, there's out of all the positions, I only see one starter that they might need to upgrade, one starting position. Other than that, it's really strengthening the bench and having more depth on the bench. Other than that, so it's not going to be like a high spending off season. It might be just shifting money around and getting the right players in the right spots. Yeah.
Now, we had a chat there on the last show. Lots of fans are saying we can't go for another low-level manager. We've had Martin Rennie, Carl Robinson, Mark DeSantis. We need someone that's proven at a higher level. So, I mean, as Axel asked there, what do you class as a higher level than MLS? And we won't get into all that just now because that's a huge debate. But for him, he said it's the big 5 leagues. And he thinks MLS is pretty much under that. And he said even in the big 5 leagues, there's clubs that's not as good as what you would find in MLS. So the chances of getting somebody from one of those big 5 leagues is small. So you probably are looking at what some fans might class as lower level.
Well, to be honest, the majority of fans are not even going to know who the coach is, unless it's like a high. Like
yeah, if they haven't been in the Premier League or something like that, they probably won't.
Obviously, the hardcore supporters, they'll know exactly who these guys are. But for me, I have a feeling they'll probably go somebody that has MLS experience, and knows the MLS. And like you mentioned before in your article, Jason Christ would probably be the number one that comes to mind, because he has been assistant for a while. He hasn't been a head coach for a while, which is a little concerning. But I think that's the type of coach that they're looking at.
His star was waning a little bit when he kind of went away, but he's a guy that has brought through a lot of young talent, and this seems to be the key thing.
And they could find out how much influence he had on this Orlando team that's doing well in this standing. So that obviously is a good sign for him.
So, Michael, does all this means like Vanni Sartini is not going to be a long-term option, right?
I would say no. But we did mention the fact, like, sometimes a coach like Brian Schmetzer can come from basically nowhere. And I know he'd had that experience before, but I mean, when he got the job before, he can't take over that job. He's not going to do anything. And then, I mean, it happens.
Schmetzer?
Yeah.
I wasn't that surprised by Schmetzer. Were you?
I think I was, because I thought they would go more for a high-profile guy just because of the market that they were in.
I was surprised just because the place that they were in, but I wasn't surprised at what he did based on having witnessed him do some pretty solid things at the lower levels with the Sounders.
But I mean, like you said before, Sartini's more of a coach educator.
Yeah,
and I think that he's more valuable in that position, and that's probably why they bought him in the first place.
Yeah. Going to be having a chat with Vanni on Friday, so we'll bring you that in the next episode. So looking forward to that and getting some of his perspective on stuff. But I mean, Axel says ultimately the new coach has to have a proven record of making teams better. It's not going to be the mass spending spree, but if they need to spend money on the coach, they are prepared to do that. But at the same time, and I do like what Axel says here, I know some fans will be like, oh, here we go, cheap. If a coach is only going to come here because of the money on offer, he is not the coach you want. If the coach is only going to come here because he thinks he likes the lifestyle of Vancouver, that is not the coach you want. You want a coach that's really invested in what the club's trying to do and to take it in the next level. Of course the money's going to help. But I mean, Ryan Gauld, whether you believe him or not, said he didn't come here for the money. He came here because of how the club was sold to him and what this project was. And that's what you kind of want the next coach to be.
Yeah, it's how much you believe in the pillar stones.
Yeah. But I'm like, come on. He's making what, like 2 to 4 times what he made on his last contract?
I believe money definitely played an aspect of it. But I do agree, like with Axel, it's like, if that's all that's motivating the coach, you don't want that coach here.
No, but there's a difference between what's motivating the coach and what the coach is worth.
Yes. And he does say that the money that is available for the coach will be tempting to a number of top coaches. So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Now, just to wrap this bit up, player-wise, it doesn't look like there's going to be another DP added in this period. They can still add a free agent until the roster frees mid-September. It does sound, though, that if the right player, to use Axel's words, if they played poker and lost, as in trying to get a new deal before the European transfer window closed, it sounds like he'd have no objection to adding a player for the rest of this season. That would be a win-win for the club and the player. I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, hopefully in the striking department, because I think we do need a little bit of backup there.
No, I'm more interested in finding somebody that possibly can help out in midfield, because with Kyle gone for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point, Steve.
That's true. So next up is Austin. We'll cover that at the weekend. It's going to be an interesting lineup. We won't delve into a preview for that. Javain Brown, called up by Jamaica off his own accord. He went off and joined the group. Actually played tonight in the second half of their game against Mexico. We're going to come to that in the next part. But before we get to that, it's time now for our Artist of the Month, our new Artist of the Month for September, and I've gone back to Scotland. What would you expect? Friend of the show, Word SOS from Edinburgh. We've played him a number of times over the years, but we've never had him as Artist of the Month. So I thought I would bring you a kind of career-spanning month of songs from Word, but we're going to kick it off with his brand new single. You can get it in all the usual places. Check it out on Bandcamp as well, word.bandcamp.com. We're going to play it in full. It's 2.5 minutes. Enjoy. Word SOS. Echo.
Word. Superman on the beat. Yo. Go all out crescendo. Cracks like a hit with a kendo. Nagasaki gone mental. Take off the mask and a bask in instrumentals. Yeah, back to offend you. Bad to the backpack rap crews. Tend to get them upset with the bars in my aim view. I don't even take aim, I just steam through. Guess it's the ink that on my shoes. Trust, I don't think I'm above you. Just, I don't cling and suck up dudes. Just do me and fuck up tunes. First, in the furf. Done kill it and kills, done Keeleys for cash to help pay the bills. I done Robert Burns raps on stages. Still, I wanna be me, not film myself. So I'm back to this, cactus whiff. All these wee pricks pushing me to spit, but the mic's go cold and the dust it sits. Though now and then the rap addiction hits. I like new rap, all your diction's good. Just think your dicks when you ditches you. You got London slang, and your bars are good. But you got London slang, so your bars ain't true. I guess I'm a judge, call me dread. But ain't on the police side or policing you hip-hop heads. I just can't rest, no sleep for the wicked. No tumbleweed and no crickets. No ERPs, no critics, reason I did it well. We'll come back to that in a minute. Sounded like a hook, sometimes I just sing it. Sometimes just wing it, sometimes unwritten. Rap's pretty easy, some MC's kidding, fibbing. Listen, those bars are your prison. Locked in with syndrome, is spitting like kings in the Midlands. Your kingdom is shit, man. We stay in a place that is hurting, so really don't care when bragging's the subject. See, I've mates dying or chasing the dragon, crying for purpose. So fuck happy duck shit. I've been lost for a while. I went soft on my style. Had a whole album I held back. Had to patch rap when the love of my life passed. Like I was shoved in an ice bath. Wanted to take my life to have her back. Lucky I had shrooms and a notepad, else I consumed the doom and not fight back. Still broken, but I'm coping. A lot better place when the rhymes off focus. A lot better face when your eyes aren't swollen. A lot better mates till the fake ones bolted. Oh, how I fell. I was an echo of myself. Chased heaven, found hell. Oh, how I felt. I was an echo of myself. Chased heaven and found hell.
Word SOS, our new Artist of the Month for September here at AFTN. His new single, Echo. You can check it out on bandcamp.com, word.bandcamp.com. Check him out as well on Apple, Spotify, all the usual places. Got a lot more to come from Word this month. Hope you enjoy it. But I mean, the lyrics to the song there, hoping for heaven, ended up in hell, kinda ties in with Canada. What we were hoping for from their opening Octagon clash in Toronto on Thursday evening as Canada took on Honduras. And it was a disappointing result in the end. It was a 1-1 draw. I mean, after all the excitement, all the hype, all the chat about this golden generation, the best way to look at this, I think, Zach, is it was a massive wake-up call.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about in the chat. It has to be that for Canada. It's very, very clear and understandable that in the, what do we call it, the Ocho or the
Octagon, Octopus.
You need to win your home games,
and
get some results on the road to be in those top three teams. And it was disappointing. I think, I don't know if it was both of you guys messaging, but they had enough going in the first half that they didn't turn into goals, and that I think really, really cost them. So it really kind of a bit frustrating occasion for what was an exciting occasion, first time in this since qualifying for, I think, France 98, and the first time we made it to this stage of qualifying, and it was they came up, I think, a little bit short, or they came up too short.
I mean, I don't want to say they shat the bed, because I think we maybe got a little bit carried away, Steve, with some of the hype here. And actually forgot how good, well, yeah, you didn't, but forgot how good Honduras actually can be as a team. And let's be honest here, Honduras looked good tonight, especially in that first half. They did what they needed to do, and they knew how to deal with Canada's threats.
Well, I think they looked all right. I think Canada, if they had connected on those shots, like they created 15 shots towards goal, but only got 3 again on goal. And I think if there were some really good opportunities that if they had just got it on net, I think they would have scored multiple. So I think they were good enough. I think that was the biggest thing. Like you speaking of the golden generation of people labeling this a goal, let them win something first before they even get to that point.
But to be fair, the players have said that themselves. It's like we can't be called that until we actually do something.
Like even other teams, like the other, like Belgium, for example, being called the golden generation, they haven't won anything.
Yeah, I know they keep shit in the bed.
Don't you have to win something to be golden or something like that before you get? So
I would say so.
So essentially, this was a disappointing. They needed the 3 points, especially like with the they needed at least like I felt like they needed 4, like either a win and a draw or 2 wins out of these first 3 games. And
I mean, I would say 2 wins, because I think you have to win these 2 home games. It feels like a big moment already in qualifying in terms of Canada. Not as bad when we look at the rest of the results tonight, because there's now a lot of parity. But
they need to essentially make up these 2 points now on the road.
Yeah,
they need to make these 2 up. Whether picking up a draw against the U.S. in this next game. The problem is the U.S. is coming off a draw against El Salvador, so they'll be jacked up as well to get a result.
I mean, if they can go to Honduras and get a draw, I think that helps, because that kind of negates everything then. But, I mean, Honduras are going to come away from this with cock a hoop, really. Yeah.
But again, I feel like, especially if you look at possession, 66-34, that's a dominating possession.
I mean, the second half was dominant by Canada, but it's what you do with that. And I mean, the thing, it was sloppy in the first half, Zach, and it was a clear penalty that Tejon Buchanan gave away. No doubts about that at all.
Yeah, it was, like I said before, they didn't create clear enough chances, and they didn't take the ones that they did.
Yeah.
And then you're right. That was I know Tejon has played at fullback, and he's played back and done the defending little lots, especially under what we've seen with him with Bruce Arena in New England. But it was not a good challenge. Yeah, it was just not a good. It was a poorly timed challenge, and it felt not like a. You know, sometimes the commentator would say it was a forwards challenge. You know, Michael, it wasn't like that. It was just. I think just poorly timed.
Well, I mean, even Gareth Wheeler admitted it was a penalty, so I mean, it was clearly a penalty. Since
no, I at first thought it was a clean shoulder to shoulder, but then you saw the leg contact, and that was the clear part of it that tweeted a penalty.
If Canada could have got an equaliser before halftime, it would have been a whole different story that we're talking about. But to be honest,
they had a great chance just before the half.
Yeah, they did. But, I mean, to be honest, when we got that penalty in the second half, I thought, going to go on. There's lots of time left. We're going to go on and do it. And that was a clear penalty as well. And it was tucked away nicely, despite Honduras doing everything that they possibly could to have as big a delay as possible. But, I mean, that was to me, that was another clear penalty. But, I mean, you think Canada would go on then and get the job done. And in the end, Honduras crashed one off the post. It's like that was a big let off as well.
One question for you. I didn't have the halftime commentary or anything on, and most of the second half I didn't have it on either.
Oh, I actually had to sign down in the second half. My wife couldn't take any more.
Was Buchanan's substitution at halftime solely tactical?
Yes.
Okay, because
they needed to have Hoylett on to try and add a bit more spark.
Yeah. Because he did the one thing other than the poor challenge from Buchanan is he was like totally caught flat-footed on that play. Like, I'm not saying it was a lazy play, but he was flat-footed on a simple give and go. So I just wonder if there was anything else that he had.
Not that I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're asking what went wrong, Steve, for me in the first half, there was a lot of giveaways. It was sloppy play by Canada. We know how dangerous Canada are on the wings, so did Honduras, and they managed that well, but Honduras seemed to control the middle of the pitch. Yeah. And I know you're always big on midfield and stuff, but it was so easy for them to take the ball away from Canada and then get something going through the middle, and we just had no one really closing them down. And we've spoken for a while now in these other games that they've got through against lesser nations, that once you come up against a team, and this is like the Whitecaps as well, once you come up against a team that is taking chances and slightly better quality, teams are going to punish you, and I think that's what happened in the first half. But, I mean, where do you think it went wrong in the end? Were they just outfought or just not taking their chances enough?
Well, the thing is the thing. One thing that troubled me was that it didn't feel like they had enough people in the midfield. Like you expected another player. Like I felt it was weird because they were playing three at the back. It seemed like, but then you had Richie Larea, Tajon Buchanan, and Alphonso Davies, all three wide players. So why do you? It seemed odd that they didn't. Like you had people on the bench like Mark Anthony Kay and Jonathan Osorio that could have been a little bit more of an option in the midfield. So that's where I question a little bit of the tactics.
I totally do as well. And I mean, it feels sometimes, Zach, that John Herdman's just wanting to get as many of his attacking pieces on the pitch as possible. And sometimes things like the midfield go by the wayside for that regard. Yeah, I think that's. And you can't blame him in some ways because it's an exciting attacking core, but you've still got to take care of the fundamentals in the middle.
Yeah, he has an embarrassment of riches going forward. Defending hasn't been great. I was a little surprised that I mean I know why, but I was a little surprised Kennedy didn't play.
Yeah. But I was even more surprised then when he came on.
He played on a striker, it seems like.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, so it does. Yeah, multiple times in the games, you felt like the tactics were very fluid. Like Steve was saying, the midfield wasn't as solid. I guess just solid. It wasn't as solid as we're used to.
Yeah, it wasn't as organized as.
And someone like a Kay or an Osorio would have done that.
Even a Piet, who was further down the pecking order, you think would have helped.
Also, there's only 2 subs made.
Yeah, that was the biggest surprise, especially when you're playing 3 days later.
I mean, I don't know if that is because a lot of these guys on the bench are now going to start against the US. We'll come to that in a sec. Let's actually play a little bit of the post-game audio from John Herdman, just with some of his thoughts about how the match played out and where in his mind things maybe went wrong a little bit.
Yeah, look, it's sort of a game that you got to take 3 points out at home, but we'll take a point after the performance. It was definitely a game of 2 halves from what you're seeing out there. I thought the players started strong, but really, really proud of the resilience they showed in that second half. I think they were able to settle their nerves. We made some tactical changes at half time, and more importantly, I just think that if they can carry that sort of spirit and resilience through, we've seen, this is going to be a great journey for the team.
You said before the game you thought it might take your team a few minutes to get into the rhythm of things. What did you think of the early going? It was a pretty frenetic evening.
Yeah, it was. I thought the first 15 minutes we started well, and it looked like, we were going to create something, and then you've seen, what they're about. They're very good in that attacking transition. The minute you lose the ball, they're swarming, and I thought we weathered some of their storms well, but it was just that middle of the first half. We just got too static. The tempo was slow. You could sense just that lack of chemistry with that group. Quite a lot of new faces playing together. So game one on a journey, a marathon of 14. That second half is what I'll look to. I mean, I'm again, Neil, proud of just how they responded, because you could sense they were coming in at halftime and they were, pissed off with the referee. They were, angry with, bits of the calls and getting frustrated. But, the leaders in the dressing room, they steadied the ship. And again, we made some adjustments, and I think you got to see the real potential of this team in the second half.
That looked like it was a fun evening. I know there was a lot of intensity, a lot of anxiety, but that's CONCACAF World Cup qualifying, isn't it? That you need to play those games to understand what they're like, and you're going to get frustrated with the refs. You're going to get, you're going to lose your composure sometimes. But how important was it for your team to experience that and now know, okay, this is what it's like when you're playing life and death World Cup qualifiers?
Yeah, it was, it was at half time. That's where they felt it. Those boys, it was almost like coming in at half time, like a holy shit moment, like, wow, this is real. I think the fantasy was we were going to get out there and it was going to be a ticky-taka evening and we were going to score 15 goals by half time. But the reality was, that Honduran team were well organized. Their medium block, the low block was tight. They didn't give anyone an inch. And I thought they thrived on just that lack of, you could feel it, that lack of chemistry, that lack of cohesion in the first half. But as I say, you heard the leaders speak at halftime. They really took ownership of what they needed to see. And we made some tactical adjustments with Hoylett coming in, and you could just sense we needed that extra player to overload their two midfield screens who had just found it too easy to match up against Johnny and Kyle and Fonzie. So, yeah, I think those are the experiences. The piece that, stood out most was Milan at the end. I mean, his passion in the huddle was exactly that. For you boys that haven't experienced this before, this is what it's like. At times you'll feel like you're playing against 14 players. It was so much passion. But what he did say is, look, this is the next level and we've got to find our next level. And it's the start of a journey. And we've got the ability to get better. That's the exciting thing for us.
And I wear it for my lady, the Canadian flag, baby.
So some thoughts there from John Herdman after that draw with Honduras. Now, I mean, he was very upbeat, which of course is John Herdman's thing. Proud of their resilience and their second half performance. Totally agree with that. But there was elements of the game tonight where I feel it maybe shows a little bit of the tactical naivety. And we kind of touched on that in the last part because you want to get your attacking pieces on. But it's the ability then to switch things up. Herdman also talked, though, about a lot of the top guys hadn't been at the Gold Cup. So the chemistry wasn't fully there. They weren't fully firing on all cylinders. And I get that. But if that was maybe a worry, maybe bring the guys to the Gold Cup.
Or
play the guys. Yeah, play the other guys. Yeah. Which I think we might now see against the US, funnily enough, Steve, because it's going to be tough to bounce back when your next game is the US away. It's still, there's a chance, because the US did not look great shakes tonight down in El Salvador. That was a 0-0 draw. I mean, may as well just quickly go over the other results tonight. I mean, good results for Canada. Panama 0, Costa Rica 0. Mm-hmm. And then El Salvador 0, US 0. And Mexico, let's be honest, if Mexico don't qualify as one of the top three, that's a major shock. So you kind of just want them to beat everyone that they play apart from Canada right now. So they took an 89th minute winner, but they got past Jamaica 2-1. Just keep Mexico winning these games and then taking points from these other things. If Jamaica had got a point from that would have been concerning for Canada. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that was a pretty good set of results for Canada if they could just have got that win themselves. But this US game, what are you expecting from it? Because I think a lot of the guys that we did not see come on tonight are going to feature on Sunday. And I do wonder, like, he'll never publicly admit this, but whether Herdman might be thinking, you know what, we're probably not going to take anything from this. I want to keep some of the best guys really fit for El Salvador in a week's time.
Yeah, I could see I could see definitely Tajon Buchanan being on there, but other than that, there's a very few starters. Some of the defenders, the center backs, can probably play a second game, but midfield can be completely swapped, and you might get. I think one of the strikers will probably play, but I think you can swap one of the other strikers. So I think it's going to be all depending, and they will have a very strong bench. So if they're close in the second half, they could probably bring on some solid players to see if they could get a result out of it.
Well, I mean, the weird thing with all of this is they could have named a 26-man squad, but they went with a 22, which is
Feels
odd.
weird.
And they've brought Lucas Cavallini, who is just back in full training, flew from Vancouver this morning, was named on the graphic as being on the bench, but on the official team list that was handed out at the stadium, he wasn't thankfully listed in that. I do have concerns that they might try and push him back too quick from a Whitecaps perspective. But, I mean, what are you expecting on Sunday, Zach?
Yeah, it feels like, as frustrating as it would be to say this or admit this, I mean, it feels like there's one of two things here. He's going to have he's seeing that there's 3 games in the short period of time. These 2 home games are must wins, so you put your best lineups out for those ones, and the other one, which happens to be away to the US, you put out a bit of a 1A lineup or 1B lineup or whatever.
That's what I would do. I'd do that in the 3 with Mexico as well.
Yeah. So not getting the win makes that hurt all the more. But the one upside is, I think, like you said, some of those guys who did perform well, like a Kennedy at the Gold Cup, might see this as the opportunity. Like, they have to prove themselves against the US, and so it might have those players kind of up for it, which I think Herdman will be really good at kind of getting them up for.
Did you see Max coming in? Because I'd be surprised if Milan plays all 3 of these games.
Yeah, you could, but I think obviously Max is on the doorstep for that number 1 job. But I could see, because he's a keeper, I could see him playing all 3. Plus, we didn't talk about it, but he was the catalyst for the goal, right? He makes a save and he starts the play that led to the penalty.
That's true. He had a couple of other shaky moments.
Yeah, but that's not foreign to him.
That's Milan being Milan.
Yeah. Also with a Canadian defense in front of him.
Yeah, and then you were talking about Whitecaps perspective earlier. Are we going to talk about Davy Flores?
Oh, yes.
And I know he's not as Whitecaps connected, but Ramel Kyoto also played a little. Amazing, but
Kyoto not endearing himself possibly to Montreal fans with some of his actions tonight, but it would have been there was no VAR in this.
Yes.
There's no VAR at all in these qualifiers.
How is there no VAR?
Because there's some countries that are not going to be able to have, like El Salvador.
So why is there VAR at the World Cup finals then?
Because you have it for every team. Like, it's in one place.
That is crazy.
No,
because it's a FIFA competition, and they said only 3 of the 8 countries have the capabilities to run VAR. You can't have it. It's got to be in every game or none. So they've gone with none. I don't mind it. I know it's CONCACAF and Canada's probably going to get screwed in some aspect from it.
They will. They will.
But I think Canada's getting a little bit more savvy in that regard as well. Little elbows going in tonight, some pushes here and there that would maybe have got some bookings if they'd been, well, maybe not VAR because you wouldn't be doing it on VAR, but I don't mind it, but it is surprising with how the world is going. That's all I'll say.
Sorry, I agree with you that in the fairness thing, but I'm surprised they're not like made it mandatory, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't move your games around to different stadiums. Have them at one stadium. Have VAR in that stadium. I know there's a cost involved, but surely if CONCACAF and specifically FIFA can hand out money to countries to help them build pitches and stuff, they can hand out money for something like this.
Yeah. I mean, talking stadiums and stuff, there was just under the maximum 15,000 allowed tonight. They had a lot of walk-ins coming up, which was good to see. I get tired, I've spoken about this before, of all this local pissing match of we'd have got more at BC Place, etc., etc.
Oh, was that happening online? I've avoided the online so far.
It was happening by your German friend.
Yeah, Manuel Veth was like,
they would have had more at I was going to say Westfield.
At BC Place and
more at
like,
Starlight.
We probably would, but there's a pandemic on, and some folk don't want to be in crowds yet.
Yeah,
so I mean, to get that crowd out there, which was basically a capacity, I think was good.
And like we said again, this is not about where they're playing; it's what's the best benefit to the team.
Yeah, that's what so many folk are missing in this.
So if the U.S. is going to play in the East,
Nashville,
and the majority of players are coming from Europe, you play in the East, the closest place.
Exactly.
I agree with you, Steve.
I mean, we broke down this and we said for these first two lots of games, Toronto makes sense. For the next couple of games, Toronto makes sense too.
And clearly, these people are not listening to our podcast.
No, they need to.
But all these people in general, they have to. I mean, all this online pissing contest doesn't help anyone.
It's one of the most tiresome things in Canadian football.
Like friendlies, I can understand. Friendlies, you should play them in other places, not just BMO Field.
Yeah.
But these are World Cup qualifiers. You play them where it's beneficial to the players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if we get none of these games at BC Place and they come out and say it's because the players say they want this, fine. I'll be pissed off. I'll be disappointed. But the players have said they want that, so go with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of my rants. Let's just wrap up our chat about the national team games by saying they are all 14 of them going to be available to watch on Sportsnet or TSN. 13 on Sportsnet, 1 on TSN. A deal has been struck. The vast majority of people that are not signing up to One Soccer can now watch these games. Tonight might not have been a great first example of this great team that we're talking about, but I think it's very important that this happened. Kudos to Sportsnet. I've been critical of them in the past. They've stood up, they've got it done. The games will also be on One Soccer as well. I would maybe prefer Sportsnet to get their own commentary team in, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen. But I think this was a very important move. Great to see, Zach.
Well, but yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, Michael, they ponied up, right?
Yep.
For years and years. Like I think Montvic was saying, they had to pay to get their games on TV.
Yes.
Now people want to see it, and you've got to pay to have it. So I don't know all the ins and outs, and other than that, it's a simulcast. But I don't know all the ins and outs of the costs and whatever. But I'm happy that more people will be able to watch them, and I'm happy for CSB that they're going to make some money on their investment in Canadian football.
I didn't see the start of everything tonight, Steve, but at halftime, it was the One Soccer halftime show. But as soon as the full-time whistle went, Sportsnet went to their own people in the studio.
Well, that's what they paid for, right? They
Yeah.
pay for the thing. So yeah, I my only concern is that One Soccer doesn't really get that many subscriptions because people find out like the quality of the play-by-play.
Yeah, I got a lot of messages tonight by people that had never heard Gareth Wheeler before, and they were not impressed.
Yeah, and now they know what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I heard Gareth Wheeler was doing. He would do like World Cup games, or he wouldn't like announce
at halftime.
On the radio and from TSN or whatever, he'd be doing.
And he was good. He was good at that.
He was okay at that. Yeah,
he was. But this play-by-play does not suit him.
What do you think?
The fact that when you got a guy like Pete Shad who isn't really doing anything right now, and you're not even approaching him, that's kind of criminal.
Michael, what did you think about your friend Terry Dunfield's color commentary?
I didn't hear a lot of it. I had to sit down for most of the second half. I turned it up when it was the penalty and then put it back a little bit to hear what they said. That whole call was way too over the top for my liking. Now, I know folk will probably hate when I do colour commentary. It's fine. Folk will like me, folk won't like me. But one thing I do is I am not about homerism. And it's like, I call it as it is, and I just thought that was way over the top.
Well, because they were saying Honduras one wasn't a penalty or something?
No, just they were so excited. It was like fans going, oh yes, here we go, it's a penalty. It's like the English commentators that I hate. So, I mean, there's that. The one big complaint I have, though, is that this was all announced the day before, where people will have ponied up for One Soccer subscriptions. And I was saying to people that for the Pacific Whitecaps game, I was like, look, get your 1 month subscription and it'll cover all the Canada games as well. So that isn't ideal. But there is a lot of folk that subscribe to One Soccer probably won't have cable. So there's that element of it as well, I guess. But anyway. But it's great that it's on TV. It's great that I can watch it without crashing or having to refresh my website. Or be half 30 seconds behind, half a minute behind on my Roku stick, which it seems to be.
The Sunday game is on TSN with the ESPN.
It is. They dealt with ESPN and they bought the rights for that. But that is the only one that TSN have. Be interesting to see how much coverage they give the team now. Anyway. But that is pretty much it for tonight's show. Just before we go, though, it's September. You know what that means. It's Football Violence Awareness Month. It's back. We're having it in March and September, twice a year, because I've got that many songs. And we're kicking it off with a band we've featured before in Wavelength. Swiss band, kind of tying in a little bit with Axel. They're very similar. Switzerland and Germany. Both make good chocolate. Vanilla Muffins. I'm sure they make good vanilla muffins as well, but that is the name of the band. This is a song from their 2014 album, a little bit of night music, eine kleine Nachtmusik. This is Modern Football Sucks, Death of a Hooligan.
Tell me that I'm wrong.
Vanilla Muffins from 2014, Modern Football Sucks, Death of a Hooligan. And we'll have more for Football Violence Awareness Month in the coming episodes. But that is it for this midweek show. Hope you've enjoyed it. Some good chat about the Whitecaps, some good chat about Canada. Just before we go, let everyone know where they can find you online, Steve. Anything you've learned this week or any final thoughts?
You can catch me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat. And what I learned this week was Dunfield and friends were too cock-a-hoop for Michael's liking.
Yeah, I normally like Terry Dunfield's cock-a-hoop, but not this week. Zach?
You can find me on Twitter at Zachary AM, and I learned that the journey is going to be a long one through this World Cup qualifying, and I'm sure Canadians still have strong feelings towards Honduras.
Yes, hashtag FH, and yeah, it's going to be a long, exciting World Cup qualifying campaign. Lots of twists and turns, I am pretty sure. It's going to make it all exciting. If all the games, if the top 3, top 4 spots all went down to the last game, how exciting would that be? Not sure it'd be good for Steve, because Steve doesn't like watching Canada when it's too much on the line. Yeah. I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read our stuff, aftn.ca. Give us a like, follow, subscribe, etc. on YouTube, youtube.com/AFTN Canada. And give us a follow on Instagram at AFTN Soccer. I just want to go by giving an RIP. We do this a lot on the show. I just wanted to say RIP to Daphne, a wrestler that I loved back in the old WCW days. Shannon Spruill, unfortunately, passed away on Wednesday evening. And, yep, just thoughts go out to her friends and her family. And rest in peace, Shannon. But we'll be back with our midweek show. But we'll be back with our weekend show. We'll be talking Whitecaps against Austin. We'll be talking US, Canada. Hopefully 2 wins to talk about. I guess we'll find out. We'll be back soon. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. Mon the Caps and Allez la Rouge.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
AFTN